Dear all, a very good evening to all of you. I am CA Kritika Bhandari and I welcome all our attendees today to our first session of GST Masterclass. As you may be aware, GST Masterclass will be a monthly session to learn and understand the practical issues under GST and to have an in-depth knowledge of the subject and to answer your specific queries. These master classes will be conducted by the mentors who are looking into practical aspects of GST and who have prepared various case studies which you are referring to in Taxo. Today's session is a special one as we have with us CA Atul Gupta, past President ICAI and a renowned GST speaker and author. I would like to now welcome Atulji to start the session.
Thank you, Kritika, and very good evening to all my colleagues here who are participating in this particular webinar organized in the pretext of the Taxo with the name GST Masterclass. Friends, as rightly being shared by Kritika, that this will be a monthly way that we will be discussing about the fundamentals of GST and try to learn the basic concept of GST so that whenever there are the changes or one or the other aspect we are handling in the GST, it will be much easier for all of us to understand the nitty-gritty and the changes which are there in the law of the GST. Friends, just to share with you that I will be taking this session for around 45 to 50 minutes and giving you the overview on the fundamentals aspect, certain fundamental aspect, and then you may have few questions in case you have in your mind. Friends, as you can see that if I will start with the basic concept of the GST, as you are aware that whenever we are talking about the GST, that is goods and service tax, the first aspect which we should learn in the GST is about the incidence of tax. Because at times when somebody, say for example, a client is coming to Naveen Modi ji and is asking that whether it is like what will be the rate of GST applicable on this product. So we have a habit that we start finding that, okay, maybe I will refer the HSN code or the SSC code and try to answer the question that, okay, what is the rate applicable? But we never thought of this aspect that whether the GST is really applicable on this activity or not. So first of all, we need to learn and we need to understand that whether the activity is really a supply, and if it is a supply, whether it is a taxable supply and attracts the GST or not. So the first principle of the GST which we should learn, and today in this particular session I will try to dwell upon on that aspect, is something that, okay, whether the GST is applicable at all or not. So what is meaning of taxable supply? Then in case we feel that, okay, this activity is a supply, then there are the two aspects, that the one that there are certain activities which are even not having any consideration but still classified as a supply, as a taxable supply. So there is a schedule 1 and the schedule 2 talks about that there are the certain activities. So you are aware when we were talking about the job works contract or even hire purchase agreement, so whether they will fall under the VAT or the service tax, there was always a fight. So in the GST regime, whether they will be treated as a service or goods has been prescribed under the schedule 2. So once the activity is taxable, then the next step is for the certain activity, whether they are service or they are goods, is something that we should learn and understand to have the fundamental understanding of the GST. Now, my dear friend, once the activity is a supply, the tax is applicable, then we should go for a classification. That, okay, what is the classification of this particular activity? What will be the GST rate applicable on this particular activity? So whether it's a goods or service, there are the HSN classification available for the goods and the service accounting code available for the services, that we should go through and understand that what is the rate of tax applicable on the activity. So now one thing is clear, that my activity is taxable. I am aware about the classification. I am aware about the GST rate which is applicable on this particular activity. Now the next step is that to learn the various other administrative aspect of the GST. So the first administrative aspect which will be there in your mind to arrive the value. What I am trying to convey you, that say for example, I am rendering certain service to a person B. or somebody is selling the goods to Mr. X is selling the goods to Mr. Y. Now, what will be the value? So there are the different aspects related to the valuation which we should have to learn. For example, apart from the section 15, which deals with the valuation aspect and the rules there too, there are the issues in relation to the mix and the composite supply, because that will change the value. For example, that I am selling certain goods in a combo. For example, if I am buying the shoes, I am getting the pair of socks free of cost. Now, whether that will be classified as a composite supply and the value of the shoes will be something that which I am selling, or the value of the socks will also I have to add. So in case I'm giving certain things free of cost. So now the next point, when I'm aware that my activity is taxable, I have to see, I have to arrive on a value which is supposed to, on which I have to pay the tax to the government exchequer. At times you will find the cases when you will see that the value you are charging from the customer vis-a-vis the value on which you have to pay the tax to the department will be different. So this is something that very, very interestingly we have to learn over a period of time. Then the place of supply. I am billing intrastate or I am billing interstate. So now in case my activity is the interstate supply, it will be the integrated GST which is applicable. But in case the supply is the intrastate, then the normal principle is that the activity will attract the CGST plus SGST. But my dear friend, there are the certain activities, for example, the renting of a immovable property. In the case of an immovable property activity in relation to that, then the principle will not be the same. In case of an export, say for example, I am a commission agent for a foreign company. Now, whether my activity will qualify to be an export or not is something depend on the place of supply provision. So once my activity is taxable, I am aware about the value. I have to see that which tax I have to charge from the customer, or whether I have to charge at all or not. Then, my dear friends, when to pay the tax, because I am aware about my value, I am aware about that I have to charge the IGST. Now, when I have to pay the tax to the government exchequer, because there are the normal circumstances, there are the exceptional circumstances. For example, there is a change in rate of tax. Now, 18th of July, you are aware that there will be a change in rate of tax. Now, what will happen? That there will be a case that when you have already supplied, but you have received the payments post change in rate of tax, or you have raised only the invoices, but the material is actually is not being delivered, or the services are not being performed, and the payment is also will be coming post rate change. So what will be the right rate of tax which will be applicable, and when you have to pay the tax is something that where we will be learning from the time of supply in this through this master class of the GST. Then the very, very important aspect, and I believe that is the 50% of the GST lies here. That is the input tax credit. What kind of a credit which is available to me, whether I am really eligible to claim the same or not, how I will be able to retain the credit, how I will be able to utilize the credit. So retain, avail, retain and utilize. These are the three different nomenclatures we need to understand. And then what is the procedures? What are the block credits in case I'm dealing in a taxable and exempted goods or a supply? Then how to claim the credits is something that we need to learn, apart from the various records to be maintained and other procedures has to be followed. My dear friend, then we have the other compliances. Say, for example, taking the registration, first time registration, how you will be able to claim the credit, filing of returns, assessments, and so on, which is there in the regime of GST. And finally, we are through with the transitional provision. So, my dear friend, with this small diagram, I try to showcase you, I give you a bird's eye view, the 360-degree eye view of the GST. What is GST all about? So this small and simple diagram actually encompasses the entire gamut of GST that we should be learning. So what we will do one by one. So maybe in the first class, as we are discussing, that we or somebody else will be discussing about the definition part, that what is taxability and what is non-taxability. Then we will move to the evaluations, place of supply, and gradually each of the aspects related to the GST in the various sessions which will be there through this masterclass mechanism. Now, my dear friend, let us move further. And as you are aware that the GST, the pre-GST regime, there was a case that somebody is being classified as a manufacturing, service, and then it was a sale, and the custom duty was applicable, then the entry tax, and so on, so and so on. But now Under the GST regime, as you are aware, that in the GST regime, there are the only three parts are there. One is an intrastate taxable supply, the another is an interstate taxable supply, and the third one is an export and import. And you are aware that the intrastate attracts the CGST and SGST in lieu of excise, service tax and VAT and so on. And in the interstate, it is the IGST. And in case of an import, apart from a custom duty, I have to pay the IGST. So it's old because 2017, we have now 5 years old regime. So all of us are aware about all these aspects. So let us move quickly to the another aspect related to the basic fundamentals, which I wish that we should be learning, we should be discussing amongst each other. My dear friend, now the one aspect which 2-3 definition part I will be touching upon, and then I will move to the most important part which I wish to discuss about the taxability part, that how to arrive the taxability of a particular activity. Before that, I just wish to draw your attention on the certain definitions which are very, very important for all of us to learn. The aggregate turnover. My dear friend, at times there are the confusions whether my turnover, my overall business, I'm eligible or I'm liable to take the registration under the GST or not. So at times you have only the taxable turnover, you have the exempted turnover. So you will feel that, okay, I'm not supposed to. For example, my total turnover, let us say I have a renting of a residential property for use as residence. My turnover is 18 lakhs rupees and my consultancy service is only 3 lakhs rupees. So whether I should take the registration, because 18 lakhs is out of the GST purview. It is 3 lakhs only, which is on which the other GST is applicable, but my threshold turnover, if less than 20 lakhs rupees, I'm not supposed to take the registration, meaning thereby I'm not supposed to charge and pay the GST to the government exchequer. Similarly, I have the different offices across India. My one office in Madhya Pradesh having a turnover of rupees 2 lakhs only. Uttar Pradesh may have a 5 lakhs. Haryana may have a 7 lakhs. So whether I am supposed to take the registration or not. So my dear friend, as given in the law, the definition of an aggregate turnover that includes. So what the law says, that aggregate value means all the taxable supplies plus exempted supplies plus export of goods or services and the interstate supply of the person having the same permanent number to be computed on all India basis, excluding the central, state, union territory and the integrated tax and the cess. Now, my dear friend, once again, I just wish to give you the emphasis that very, very importantly, we have to understand that number one, what the law is saying, that all the taxable supply, the exempt supply and the export, and based on the national level. So it is not the case that, okay, if you have the 10 offices, that all the 10 offices will be having the 20 lakhs separately. No, it will be a combined turnover at the national level within the same PAN number that you have to accumulate, and then you have to see whether my turnover is crossing the threshold limit of 20 lakhs rupees or 40 lakhs as the case may be. Now, my dear friend, there are the two exclusions also being given under this aggregate turnover. One is a reverse charge. So at times what is happening that you are, say for example, you are getting an advocate services, and in the advocate services you are paying the tax under the reverse charge mechanism. So basically you are getting the invoice, but you are raising an invoice on yourself and then you are paying the tax to the government exchequer. So whether that turnover will be the part of this aggregate turnover, the answer is no. Now another aspect is that, okay, whether the tax value, for example, you have a turnover of 17 lakhs rupees and plus 18% or 18 lakhs rupees turnover is there, plus say for example the tax value is there, something is there that, okay, the tax if will be applicable. So the tax, the CGST or the SGST or the UTGST or the IGST need not to be included in the value of the value for the purpose of calculating the aggregate turnover. So that's very, very important that we should understand, and then we have to see that all our assessees are complying with this kind of a aspect related thereto. My dear friend, then there are the various other definitions are also there. I'm not touching all of them because the time is of essence, and I don't wish that, okay, we will be spending more time on basic things which you are now aware, because the law is a 5-year-old law. But my only point is that the various important definitions which I have included in the presentation are worth to note in the times to come. So whenever you have the time, you please read the definition of a business, because that talks about the various activities which includes the, say for example, the capital goods. So example, you are buying a machinery and then you are selling the machinery after a particular period. So whether that will be subject to GST, because that is not your business, but still it will be there. But in case you are selling certain, for example, you are going for a, I will say that is called the slump sale. So whether the slump sale will be subject to GST or not, the answer is no, it will not be. But in case you are closing your business and you are supplying your capital goods to somebody else, then it will be subject to the GST. That's given under the section 17 subsection D. And similarly, the provision of a club, association, or a society. Because there was a Ranchi club case, there was a Gujarat Sports Club case which talks about that this will not be subject to the GST. But now, as given in the various circulars, clarification, and the notification issued by the department, and in the definition itself, it says that if you are providing certain facility or benefit to its member, either as a club, association, or a society, that includes the definition of a business. Now, my dear friend, likewise, there are a number of other things which we may discuss, the business verticals, because business verticals, as you are aware, that in case you are dealing with a different type of a goods or different type of a services, then you can have, you may be having a different business verticals, and based on that, you can always have a different series of the invoices which you may be using to comply with the law of the GST. Capital goods, they have defined. Casual taxable person, they have also defined, which is very, very important. Now here I will stop. The composite supply vis-a-vis the mixed supply. My dear friends, this is a very, very important provision. And I wish that I will come back on this particular provision once we will be discussing about the definition of a supply or a mixed supply that I will be touching upon. Now, before I take any of these definition, let me take you, because the time is the essence, I will just take you to the definition of a supply. Just give me a minute time. Yes. Now, my dear friend, this is the fundamental aspect, number one, which I wish that each one of us should understand through this platform, that what is meaning of a supply. Now, my dear friends, as I mentioned you earlier, that at times there will be a situation that somebody asks you, okay, my dear friend, I am doing this activity. For example, I'm just sharing with you that I am into this business of plotting. So I am a builder. I am doing a plotting business. I am buying a 5-acre land, and then I am doing a plotting of 100 square yard each and selling to the proposed customers. Now, whether this activity, what will be the GST rate applicable on this activity? So, my dear friend, it is very, very important for all of us that rather than going straight away to assess whether the which rate will be applicable, it is very, very important to learn that whether this activity is really a taxable supply or not. Now, my dear friend, if you will read the definition of a section 7, which talks about the supply, nowhere in the law the taxable supply is being defined. Nowhere in the law that you will find the definition of a taxable supply, that okay, you will read the definition of a taxable supply, and then based on that you will be able to comprehend, you will be able to assess that whether this activity is a taxable activity or not. So, my dear friend, just to help you out, I'm just doing a small thing, that I am preparing a small equation, that whenever you have this kind of a challenge, whether the activity is a taxable activity or not, or you want to understand what is the meaning of a taxable supply. What is the meaning of a taxable supply? Because that is nowhere defined in the law. I just wish to request you that you please go with the small calculation, small formula, which I prepared myself. There is nowhere where you will find this formula in the books of law. So you should not confuse that, okay, where from Atul is reading this law formula. I'm just giving you a small formula that in case you want to go for a definition of a taxable supply, it means the A plus B minus C minus D. Now, this is the formula which I prepared myself for myself and for my team, that whenever you have the question whether the activity is a taxable activity or not, whether this activity attracts the GST or not, you please refer this formula, and based on that you will be able to comprehend, you will be able to understand whether the activity is really a taxable supply or not, and then we will go with the rest of the things, that okay, what will be the rate of tax and so on and so on. Now, my dear friend, what is this A plus B minus C minus D? Let me share with you, and then I will explain you that what is I'm trying to convey you. Now, if I tell you that A here, here means the section 7. So here the A means the section 7 plus B is schedule 1. C stands for schedule 3. And D stands for section 11. Meaning thereby, wherein the government has the power to issue the exemption notification, and for virtue of that, they issued a notification number 12/2017 for the services and likewise for the goods. Now, my dear friend, if you ask me, what is this all about? Let me explain you one by one each of the 4 part of this formula. A plus B minus C minus D. Let us come back to the A. Now, A talks about the section 7. So section 7, when we go back to the our presentation, so section 7, as you can see, the section 7 talks about the definition of a supply. Now, my dear friend, the section 7 have the 4 parts. So what I'm trying to convey you, that before even an activity will be a taxable supply, first it has to be a supply. Unless and until the activity is not a supply, how it can be a taxable supply? So it is not the case that every activity before this universe that will be a supply. No, the answer is no. They defined that the certain parameters are there. There are the 4 parameters that every activity has to perform, every activity has to have, then only the activity will become a supply. So what the all 4 ingredients are there? Number 1, that the activity, there should be a supply, there should be a sale, there should be a transfer, there should be a barter, there should be exchange, license, rental or lease or disposal of a goods or service. So please try to understand what I'm saying. That I'm saying that the of goods and service. If you can see on this, I'm not aware whether you are able to see the mark, my mark or not. So the first one is that there should be a goods or service. So what happened when you are doing a plotted sale, when you are selling a immovable property for which you have received the completion certificate, that is neither a goods nor a service. So if the activity, if the things which you are selling, if you are the activity which you are transferring is neither a goods nor a service, for example, the money, for example, the actionable claims, for example, the immovable property, that is neither a goods nor a service. So in that case, the first principle that it should be a goods or service will fail and the activity will not be a supply. Number 2, there should be a sale. There should be a transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease or so and so on. Number 3, that there should be made for a consideration. So there should be a consideration. So first is that there should be a goods or service. The number 2 is that there should be a sale. And number 3, there should be a consideration. And number 4, in the course or furtherance of business. Now, my dear friend, unless and until these 4 conditions are not fulfilled, the activity will not be a supply. I'm giving you I can give you many examples. For example, you are a very religious person. Every day you are going to the temple and you are buying the breads from the market and giving free of cost to the persons who are sitting over there, who are looking for some kind of food items or who are not having much of a money available with them to buy the foods from the market. Now, what is happening that you are, the bread you are buying is good. You are also transferring that the one hand to another hand. So Mr. X is transferring the goods to Mr. Y, who is sitting over there, meaning thereby there is a transfer as well. And the third aspect, made for a consideration. So whether there is any consideration involved, the answer is no, meaning thereby, even if there is a, so what will happen? Say for example, in a normal course of business, say for example, I have this pen. Now I want to give this pen to one of my colleague as a free of charge. Now, there may be a case that, okay, I have to reverse the input credit which I claimed because I have disposed of free of cost, because that given under the section 17(5) that, okay, I have to reverse the credit because I have disposed the certain goods free of cost as a sample or otherwise. But since when I'm giving this something to Mr. Y and I'm not charging any consideration, this is not a supply. This is not a supply. So my dear friend, the third point that I am discussing about is that there should be a consideration. Likewise, I just give an example. Today I am giving a lecture over here in the GST masterclass. So normally whenever I'm giving a lecture. At times, the corporate entities are giving me the money. So whenever I used to go, they give me the 50,000 rupees. Okay, Atul, you have came here. I am giving you the 50,000, 10,000, 20,000, 1 lakh rupees as per the, depend on the company to company. So now there is a service which I am delivering. Number two, that I am delivering the service as well. There is that is in course or furtherance of business as well, because that is my business as well. But here, since I'm not charging any money, so meaning thereby, in spite of the three conditions are fulfilled, because in the absence of the fourth condition, that is consideration, the activity will not be a supply. So my dear friend, the first and the foremost aspect which I wish to discuss with you, which I mentioned with you, that there should be the four important requirements. Then only an activity will be a supply. So my dear friend, as I discussed with you, as I shared with you on the diagram, I just wish to take you the diagram again, that in case there is a, let us create a bucket. Let us create a bucket. Okay, this is the bucket you have, and so you have this bucket. Now on this bucket, there are the n number of activities, so which are there in the system, which are moving in the system. Now what I am trying to convey you, the activities which are fulfilling all these four criteria, they will come into this bucket, and this bucket means that this bucket is a supply. So I given this bucket name as a supply. Now whichever activity will fulfill all these four conditions, whichever activity will fulfill all these four conditions will be a supply. Now my dear friend, then we move to the from A to B, which was that, okay, the schedule 1, as I explained you, that this is section 7. So first is section 7, as we discussed. Now coming to the schedule 1. Schedule 1. Now schedule 1 is saying that, no, my dear friend, there are the 5 activities. There are the 5 activities wherein the consideration doesn't matter. Consideration doesn't matter. Even if you will fulfill 3 conditions, even if you will fulfill 3 conditions, then also that activity will be classified as a supply. Then also the activity will be classified as a supply, and that will also add into the bucket, this bucket, and that makes us the entire activity as a supply. So my dear friend, what all these 5 activities are there, I will go back into the presentation and I will explain you again. But what I am trying to hear you through this whiteboard, that all the activities which are completing these 4 parameters and the activities which are falling under the schedule 1, that is the 5 activities which are fulfilling 3 criteria only, meaning thereby there is no consideration requirement, then also the activity will be a supply. Now my dear friend, out of this bucket, I will take certain activities outside. I will take certain activities outside from this bucket which are under the negative list, which are under the negative list that is given under the schedule 3. So if you are an employer-employee relationship and so, I will explain you. So that will come out from the bucket and that will be a negative list, and the activities which are exempted under various notification like 12/2017 as given under the power under the section 11. So section 11 given the power to the government to issue the various exemption notification, under which they issued the notification like 12/2017. So these 2 will come out from this bucket. So though they are fulfilling all the 4 criteria or the 3 criteria under the schedule 1, but since the government feels that in the interest of the society, in the interest of a particular sector, we should be taking out this activity from this bucket, then the government issued the notification, necessary notification to exempt the same, meaning thereby the activities which remained within the bucket, 2 came and few goes out, and the rest of the activity which will remain in the bucket will be called as taxable supply. So my dear friend, this is the way that we need to learn. So now I will go back to the presentation and I will explain you that what are the various activities which are defined under the schedule 1. Now, so this we have discussed that, okay, that all the activities which are fulfilling all these 4 criteria will be called as supply. Now, the activities which is specified in the schedule 1, made or agreed to be made without a consideration, meaning thereby for the 5 activities, the consideration is not a necessity. The consideration is not a necessity. And now let us understand what are those 5 activities. Number 1, the permanent transfer or disposal of a business asset where input tax credit has been availed. You purchased a laptop for rupees 1 lakh and paid 18,000 rupees as GST. You claimed the input tax credit against your output liabilities. And after 3 years, because the laptop your staff was using and you are impressed with the working of that staff member, your team member, now you are giving that laptop to your team member without any cost. You are saying, oh, you please take this laptop, it's yours now, because this is a 3 years you are working so hard in my company. Now what is happening? That is a permanent transfer or the disposal. So this is a permanent disposal of a business asset where you have claimed the input tax credit. So my dear friend, what the law is saying, that in this particular scenario, you have to calculate the value of that asset. You have to, so there are the 2 options. Either you have to reverse the credit, or you have to pay the tax on the transaction value, wherein the rule section 18 subsection 6 explain that, okay, how to calculate the value of the like the tax liability. So what the law is saying, that in this particular case, until and unless the 5 years of the asset is not over, then even if you are giving without any consideration, that will be subject to a GST and that will be called as a supply. So even if you are not charging any money from your team member or from anybody, but on the asset in which you have claimed the input tax credit, that will be called as a supply. Number 2, the supply of goods or service or both between the related person or between the distinct person as specified in section 25 when made in the course or furtherance of business, meaning thereby the branch transfer. The distinct person is nothing but a branch transfer, and related person, you are aware that we have a definition of a related person given under section 15 as well. So my dear friend, what the law is saying, that in case you are supplying certain goods from a holding company to a subsidiary company, or in case of from for example to the one family member to the another family member, or you are giving a certain supply from one branch to another branch, and you are saying that since there is no consideration, I am giving free of cost to my branch, so there should not be any GST. The answer is no, my dear friend. The law says even if there is no consideration involved in this particular activity, still that will be classified as a supply, and on which under the valuation rule you have to calculate the valuation rules, the formula as per the given in the valuation rule. You have to charge the GST, you have to pay the GST on the same. Now my dear friend, coming to the next point, that is the next supply, and there is a exemption which is being provided in the law, that in case the gifts are not exceeding 50,000 rupees in value between the employer and employee relationship, then it will not be, there will be an exception to that. Now my dear friend, the third one, the supply is made to the principal to the agent, and vice versa, that agent to principal. In that case, it will be a supply. So if the principal is sending, so normally in the old regime of VAT, what was happening, that is the last point sale, that when the principal was supplying the goods to agent, then the transaction between the principal and agent was not taxable. There was no VAT applicable for the certain transaction and for the certain point of time. When it was only when the agent was supplying the goods finally to the consumer, the tax was collected and then it was paid to the government exchequer. But now, my dear friend, in the GST regime, even if the principal is sending the goods to the agent without any cost, without any consideration, then also the transaction between the two will be subject to the GST, as the same will constitute as a supply. So even if there is no consideration, that will be called as supply. And my dear friend, the fourth one, the import of service. You have a branch in Dubai and you have a branch in Delhi. You are getting certain services from your Dubai branch. And since you are saying that, oh, it's my branch only, it's my entity only, it's my unit only, wing only. Why to? Whether the Dubai will charge from India for within the company. So answer will be yes, they will not charge, because they will say, no, we are one family. We are only the team. One Indian team is sitting, Dubai team is sitting. Now the Dubai team is doing for example, the marketing job, or some kind of a sales job or some kind of a support job. So what is the problem? Because they are the wings only. But my dear friend, the law says that even if they are the part of the same establishment, same organization, then also if the one branch of Dubai branch is rendering certain services to Indian branch, then also the same will be subject to GST, as the same will classified as a supply, even if in the absence of the consideration involved. So my dear friend, what I am trying to convey you, that as we discussed the section 7, the taxable supply, that there is a, now we have covered the A plus B. So we have covered the, what is the meaning of a supply, and we have covered the schedule 1, wherein the certain activities are there which are being classified as a supply, even if there is absence of the consideration. Now, my dear friend, coming to the next one, that is the schedule 3, because that before I discuss the schedule 2, because that is routine in nature, the schedule 3 is very, very important, wherein now we have recently seen that the high C sales has been added, that in the schedule 3, that is the neither will be treated as a supply of goods nor as a supply of service. So my dear friend, this is a negative list. Negative list number 1, they are saying that in case there is a service by an employee to the employer, and now you have witnessed the recent amendment in the 47th GST Council, that even the perquisites, if somebody, the employer is providing the perquisite to the employee under the contractual agreement, then also this the same will not be subject to the GST. The another is the tribunal, that various tribunals are there who are providing the services, that is not subject to GST. The functions performed by the member of parliament and the member of state, MLAs, panchayat, municipalities, they are also not falling under the definition. They are having a, whatever they are getting the money, that is something about in the negative list only. Any other person who holds the constitutional capacity, then also whatever the amount they are getting, that is something out of the ambit of the GST. Likewise, the various chairperson or the directors of the body established by the central government or a state government local authority, they are also outside the ambit of the GST. Service of funeral, burial, crematorium, mortuary, also out of the GST. The sale of land, as I explained you, because that is neither a supply of goods nor a supply of service. The sale of land is not taxable, and recently, I just remind you that in the 47th GST Council meeting, they clarified that even if you are selling this land after doing some kind of a leveling work or some kind of a drainage work, then also that will not be subject to the GST. So that's very, very important that we should be aware about. Actionable claims. So actionable claims, I believe that you are aware about what is the meaning of actionable claims. So for example, the insurance claims are there. There is a mishappening. For example, there is a fire in a factory and there was a loss of 1 crore of rupees stock. The insurance company is giving 80 lakhs rupees as an insurance claim. Now that insurance claim that somebody X is getting is not subject to the GST, because that has given a blanket exclusion under the schedule 3 as a negative list, that it will not be subject to the GST. Yes, on this 1 crore rupees stock lost, as given under section 17(5), the X has to reverse the credit. But for the 80 lakhs rupees he is getting from the insurance company, that is outside the GST ambit, that is neither treated as a supply of goods nor as a supply of service. But the lottery, betting and gambling, whatever the amount somebody X is getting, that is subject to GST as given under this particular. And finally, the high C sales, which I discussed, I mentioned you that recently the high C sales has been classified as under the schedule 3 only, that is neither will be treated as a supply of goods nor as a supply of service. So my dear friend, this was a basic fundamental understanding which I wish that we should be discussing about. So I believe I just take you back to this whiteboard which we prepared. I believe that will be available for us, maybe the old one. I have to go back. So I believe now this whiteboard example is much clear to all of you, that what I'm trying to convey you through this illustration, that what is meaning of a taxable supply. So my dear friend, it's very, very important for all of us that before we are moving ahead, that whether what will be the rate of tax, what will be the value, and when I have to pay the tax, which tax will be applicable. First of all, we should have a clear understanding, as I explained you in the initial diagram, that whether the incidence of tax is there or not. So if the incidence of tax is there, then only the other things will follow. And that's something that I try to explain you. Now, my dear friend, let us have the one more understanding, concept clarity, because we have certain time available. So I take you the another, because in this entire masterclass series, we will try to cover at least 20-30 basic fundamentals of the GST on a time-to-time basis. So this was the first one. Now I am taking the second one amongst each one of you. The second one talks about the mixed versus composite supply. So my dear friend, let me take you to the mixed versus composite supply. Yes. So this one. Now, my dear friend, there was a sale in the market. So if you buy a television set and a set-top box, so you will get a special scheme. So normally the TV set is a television set is for 20,000 rupees, and the set-top box is for 5,000 rupees. Your television, let us assume that television set attracts the GST at the rate of 5%, whereas the set-top box attracts at the rate of 28%. So somebody created a scheme that the television set will be available free of cost with the purchase of the set-top box. Or I will say vice versa. If you will buy a TV for 25,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees, I will give you the free of cost the set-top box of rupees 5,000 free of cost. Now, my dear friend, the question will come, or I give you another example. If you buy a pair of shoe, I will give you a free of cost the pair of socks. Now, my dear friend, there will be a question, because the set-top box was attracting a GST at the rate of 28%, TV was attracting at the rate of 5%. You made a special scheme wherein if you are buying a TV set, you are getting a free of cost set-top box. Practically on the entire transaction, the seller will be charging only 5%, and there will be no 28% GST applicable on the set-top box as they feel so. Now, my dear friend, whether he is right into that, or what is the meaning of a composite or a mixed supply into this particular regime? As you are aware, there was a argument, and then the department issued a clarification when somebody was buying a sweet along with the chocolate wrapping. So there was a case that whether the chocolate will attract the separate tax and the barfi will be taxable under the different head. So my dear friend, let us understand first that what is the meaning of a composite or a mixed supply with this kind of a situation. My dear friend, as per the law, if you will go to the law, a composite supply is a supply where more than two supplies are comprising. So one is a principal supply, and then the entire supply will be called as a supply of a principal supply only. What I am trying to convey you, let us give an example. My dear friend, there are the two different. For example, I want to go to buy a milk. Now, if I will go to say for example, I want to buy the 5-liter milk, and I am getting a envelope along with because if I will go to buy the milk, the envelope will be certainly provided by the supplier to me, because I will not be able to carry the 5-liter milk in my hand. Or there will be n number of situations. For example, you are going to buy the water, and you are getting the water into say for example, in a bottle. Now, because the bottle will have the plastic will have a different HSN classification, and the water will have a different HSN classification. But actually, what you are going to buy, you are buying the water. You are buying the milk. In that case, whatever the plastic is there in this water bottle is only a supplementary, wherein the principal supply, the principal purchase which I am doing is the water. So what the law is saying, that in case there are the two different supplies, are made as a composite supply. So water and the plastic are the two different supply otherwise, but they are being provided me as a composite supply. In that case, whatever will be the rate of the principal supply, meaning thereby of the water, will be the rate of this plastic water bottle, which I will purchase from the market. So what the law is saying, that in case you are supplying two different commodities, but as a composite, which are interdependent with each other. They can't be, they can't be, because I can't purchase the water alone. So in that case, whatever will be the rate of the principal supply will be the rate of the entire supply, that is comprising the two different supplies. But in case of a mixed supply, what the law is saying, that there are the two supplies, but I am giving a combo scheme. If you will buy the television set, I will give you the set-top box free, wherein they are not interdependent on each other. They are not interdependent on each other. I can buy the TV set and I can use this. Say, for example, I can use the other mode of using the television set, maybe through the pen drive, maybe through the, these days you have this called the air touch, this what you call the sticks. So you will have the sticks available with you. So even if you are not looking for a set-top box, so the set-top box is, the TV is not interdependent on the purchase of the set-top box, and vice versa. So meaning thereby there are the two different supplies which are not interdependent with each other, but you are giving a combo. In that case, the highest of the rate. So for example, if you are giving a TV box along with the set-top box, the TV attracts 5%, set-top box attracts 28%. In that case, the entire combo will attract the 28% GST. So my dear friend, it's very, very important for all of us that whenever we have this kind of a schema, the combo, you can see in the market, you will have an n number of combos available. If you will buy something, you will get a com. If you will do this, you will get this. If you will buy the mobile phone, you will get the pen free. If you will get this, you will get this free. It's very, very important that we should understand that in that kind of a scenario, when the activities, the two different supplies are not interdependent with each other, in that case, it is very, very important to learn that the highest of the rate which will be applicable, unless and until they are dependent on each other. So my dear friend, this is something that I wish to share with you through this particular aspect, because this is something that will attract the litigation in the times to come. Because there will be a case when you will, the assessees are using the combos and they are not aware whether that, okay, what will be the case in that case. There is a chat box wherein I have certain questions. So let me take the question. Is good hypothecated and repossessed for recovery of loan is an actionable claim? No. In case of a HP hire purchase, it's a service, and the recovery of loan will depends, because in case you are NBFCs or so, whatever the capital amount you are reclaiming, Devendra Saravji, in that case, it will not be, because the NBFC is recovering the capital amount. In that case, that will not be a activity subject to the GST. There will not be on the recovery of the loan per se, but whatever will be the transaction charges, whatever will be the recovery amount, penalty, interest, whatever you are charging in that as a matter of a service charge, that will certainly attract the GST. The next question is from the Rohtash Mittal, that the GST on freight charges charged in sale bill along with the supply, is it a composite supply or a mixed supply? So Rohtash, I just wish to share with you, it's depend. That in case, say for example, a furniture dealer is there and you are buying the furniture from a furniture dealer. Now there will be a case that, okay, that the furniture dealer will be saying that, okay, the charges for the furniture is 20,000 rupees and 1,000 rupees will be the freight charge. So practically speaking, the 21,000 rupees will be the charge which the furniture person is charging from you. That will be treated as a composite supply only. But the 1,000 rupees, if you are giving to a freight provider separately, for example, let us say there is a GTA involved, In that case, the 1,000 rupees you are paying to the GTA, then there will be two separate supplies. One is for purchase of furniture and another is for the GTA amount you are paying, and then it will be reverse charge or a 5% or a 12%, as the case may be, it will be applicable. So that depends that, okay, how you are making this transaction. My dear friend, the question will be, Devinder Saraf is saying this is a mixed supply. He is wrong. If I am buying water in a fancy bottle, what will be the impact? Supposedly the rate of tax water is lower. My dear friend, as I explained you, that in case it's of water, then the GST will be applicable for the water only, whether you are having a fancy bottle or otherwise. But in case it is aerated water, it is a juice is you are buying. In that case, the GST will be applicable on with the rate which is applicable on the juice or aerated water or any other kind of let us say you are buying a coffee, cold coffee, then the cold coffee rate will be applicable whether the water bottle is a fancy bottle or otherwise. It's purely on you that you are buying. It's not a fancy bottle you are buying. It is the water you are buying, which is a principal supply. When you will go to a shop, whether you will say I am buying a fancy bottle or you will say I want to have a water. So it's depend on the person that, okay, which kind of a bottle he is supplying. Yes, there may be the intrinsic value for the bottle in the future, because you may have keep the water bottle with you, but that will not be treated as a mixed supply. That will be treated as a principal composite supply only. The question is from Naveen Kumar. The supply of soybean oil after packing off in 1 liter pouch in carton box, what shall be treated as a composite or a mixed supply? My dear friend, supply of a soybean oil after packing in a 1 liter pouch, it will be the oil only. Whether you are doing in a carton box or otherwise, it will be a composite supply only. And the rate which is applicable on the soybean oil will be applicable rather than of the carton, because the carton will have only a integral part. How you will take the 10 liter, for example, you are having a 1 liter pouch and you want to buy the 10 pouches. How you will take the 10 pouches? Ultimately, you have to put in the carton. So carton is only an incidental supply along with the principal supply. So that will be only the oil, soybean oil rate, which will be applicable rather than the carton rate. But officer says, why you are supplying 1 liter pouch in carton box? Okay, that purely the wish of the field officer. I will not comment on that, but I can tell you that it's purely a packing. So the packaging, whatever you are giving, will not have a mixed supply nature. Whatever the expenditure will be there in the packaging, but it will be ultimately the principal supply you are buying. You are buying the soybean oil. You are not buying the carton box or the pouch, as the case may be in this particular example. We have huge quantity of supply of oil, which is not possible to supply only in packing material. So my dear friend, this is, I just wish to share with you that it depends. But ultimately, whether you are going for a 50 liters or a 1 liter or a 10 liter pouch or the packing, as the case may be, but the point is that that will not be, that will be the rate, which is the soybean oil rate, which will be applicable. My dear friend, he is not agreeing, or how you can convince that. That is something that you can have an n number of judgments available. Even if you will write to me, I will provide you the judgment which is relevant to your case. So you can provide to the Taxo team or to me, and we will provide you the judgment which may help you maybe to convince the officer, as the case may be. But whatever technically we can support you, we are always there to support you, my dear friend. Now, my dear friend, let us move to the another this aspect of the GST, which is Schedule 2. Now, the Schedule 2, again, though it's already we are through with the this aspect earlier because of the 5 years of the GST, but let us again just reiterate that, okay, maybe on a fast track we can have few minutes available with us so that we can okay, 455 is already there. So Kartika, you may ask certain question in case somebody may have.
Sir, there is a question in the Q&A section. It says if dealing in exempted goods or services through e-commerce operator, whether compulsory registration is mandatory in case of interstate supply. This question pertains to registration, but it just came up.
Okay, I will just check the question. But Navinji, I just wish to request you that in case you want to judgment relating to this case, you please just write to us, write to me. I have my email ID. I can just write my email ID on the chat box only. So you can write to me. I will request the team to provide you the judgment. Otherwise, you can write to the Taxo team as well. They can also provide you the judgment. Vinod Kumar Sharma ji have a question. If dealing in exempted goods, oblique services through e-commerce, whether compulsory registration is compulsory, meaning thereby the registration is compulsory as its interstate supply. My dear friend Vinodji, just wish to share with you that in case you are dealing with the exempted goods or service, the registration is not required. So registration is not required whether you are doing in an intrastate or an interstate, hardly matters. Because your turnover is entire turnover is exempted goods, that is not required. And even I just wish to update you that recently in the 47th GST Council meeting, it has been decided that even the suppliers who are supplying through the e-commerce operator and having a turnover of less than 20 lakhs rupees, that is the threshold, below the threshold limit, they are not required to take the registration. But certainly there was a condition that they are not doing an interstate supply. But now here in this particular case, since you are dealing in exempted goods or service, then the registration will not be required even if it is an interstate supply. So I believe that we have through with this question as well.
Yes.
So maybe Kartika, you can, because I have the another concept which we can take, but the time is now very short, 2-3 minutes are there. So you may summarize the discussion and then we can have the next sessions maybe scheduled in few days.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir. With that, we come to the end of this wonderful session today. I hope you all found this session informative and insightful. I would like to thank Atulji for his time today and for sharing his wonderful insights with us all. Thank you once again, and it has been an honor and privilege to have you all with us today, along with our distinguished speaker, Atul Gupta ji. We look forward to hosting you guys again. We will have our next primetime session tomorrow, that is July 15th, on the topic valuation under GST. Wish you a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you so much.
Kartika, we have a question in the chat box.
So it just came up.
We have paid lease amount on upfront for next 12 years to owner. Prior to 2017, before GST, neither owner charged any service tax, no on it, and not paid by us. Now owner is chargeable in GST. Is it payable? Atulji, I will just request you that in case you can share me the agreement, because it depends on certain conditions of the agreement as well. So straightway giving the answer will be difficult. So in case you can share me the gist of the agreement or the copy of the agreement, I will be able to give you the correct answer. So better will be that let us analyze the agreement and then give the answer. You have the email ID, you can share me the agreement. I will read and revert you, Atulji. Thank you, Kartika. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please. Thank you.